Here now for more CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Mark Caleb Smith, Director for the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Gentlemen, welcome. Mark, let's start with you. We could be headed toward another shutdown in just a matter of weeks here. This time around, both sides took hits in the court of public opinion. How do you see it playing out next time?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably a reasonably good chance that we'll see a shutdown happen in early January. This was just a stopgap measure that was passed. Only 3 of the 12 appropriations bills that they needed to be passed have really been dealt with in any kind of meaningful way. And so Congress still has a lot of work to do if we want to avoid another close down in January, as I said. In terms of public opinion, it's complicated because our parties are so polarized at the moment that it seems like partisans just want to see that their side is fighting and that they're standing up for things. And I think that cuts in sort of unpredictable directions based on what we're looking at. And so when we get around to January after the holidays, then I'm sure the partisans will assess everything on Capitol Hill and they'll reconsider. But I would suspect we'll have another shutdown.
Yeah. David, during the funding bill signing this week, President Trump, he kept pointing to the economy, saying that the country has never been in better shape. David, is that the right message as Americans grapple with the cost of day-to-day life, housing and food and all of these things, and other things like the Obamacare subsidies, for example, that are getting ready to expire?
Well, Jenna, the last thing you want to do as a politician, whether you're President Trump or anybody else, is appear tone deaf. And so what the White House needs to do is understand that some prices are indeed unaffordable. Some have actually come down. Gas prices, eggs have come down, but beef and others have gone up. And so, it's kind of a mixed bag. So really, this is about a PR war at this point, having a game plan. And that's really the key question for the White House tonight. What is the game plan? We're understanding that President Trump is going to travel more domestically through the midterms. Now, he typically travels quite a bit, but apparently there's going to be a real big emphasis on this affordability issue, and I think they're going to have to do that. They hope that the economy turns around. They believe it will, and get even better when some of that big, beautiful bill that is now the big, beautiful law, if you will, comes into effect with the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. That type of stuff starts to happen in the second quarter of next year. We'll see, leading up to the midterms.
Yeah. He's been talking a lot about how Thanksgiving is going to cost less this year, but we'll see how people feel come this time next year. Okay, let's talk about the Jeffrey Epstein story. So this week, House Democrats released emails from the convicted sex offender appearing to shed more light on his relationship with President Trump. David, how serious is this for the president and his reputation and his ability to govern?
Well, it just won't go away. And so what we're going to see next week in the House, Jenna, is that discharge petition where, in essence, there will be a vote in the House where Democrats, and it could be up to 100 Republicans, say yes to the fact that the DOJ should release or needs to release and will be compelled to release about 100,000 Epstein documents. So this is going to keep going on, trickle, 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 dump, dump, dump. And I think ultimately it's not going to go away anytime soon. And that's going to be a big problem for the Trump administration.
Yeah. All right. Internationally, the Trump administration is said to be looking at expanded military operations in Venezuela, Mark. Are there any precedents for what we're seeing? And how much can the administration do here without Congress, Mark?
Yeah, there aren't a lot of clear precedents, especially in our recent history. The president is going to argue, and certainly his administration will argue, that the executive has a lot of inherent authority to deal with international threats and crises without congressional authorization and approval. Congress, and I think, would generally push back against that. I think also, just to echo a little bit of what David said, as the president continues to struggle perhaps with scandals, if inflation continues to grow, then I think we're looking at a weakened presidency to some extent. His approval rating is dropping, which I think makes him more vulnerable from Congress maybe actually stepping in if they seek to expand operations in Venezuela. And so I think President Trump is really kind of struggling right now at the moment to keep hold of the Republican Party. If that hold fractures a little bit, then I would expect Venezuela to get a lot of resistance out of Congress.
Yeah. David, final word?
History is also not on the Trump administration's side with those midterm elections. Typically, a president doesn't do well in those midterms as well.
Yeah. All right, David and Mark, great to have you with us this Friday. Thank you both.
Thanks,
Have
Shannon.
a great weekend.
You too.